The blue-white light of distant stars reflected off the hull of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance as it approached the meeting point. Inside the bridge, Captain Ethan Ward took a deep breath. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally found intelligent alien life. The Viridian Empire had made contact 3 weeks ago, and this would be their first face-to-face meeting. "Are you ready, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Ben Harris, standing at attention beside the command chair. "As ready as anyone can be to meet aliens," Ethan replied, straightening his uniform. His brown eyes scanned the bridge crew, all watching him with a mix of excitement and fear. "Remember our mission. We represent all of humanity today." The view screen flickered to life, showing a massive ship that dwarfed the Defiance. Its dark purple hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Sharp angles and protruding weapons made its purpose clear. This was a warship, not a diplomatic vessel. "They're hailing us," said Communications Officer Lisa Grant, her fingers moving quickly across her console. "Open the channel," Ethan ordered, standing tall. The screen changed to show a humanoid figure with pale blue skin, large black eyes, and no visible nose. Intricate patterns covered its face like living tattoos that shifted slightly as it moved. "I am High Commander Zextar of the Viridian Empire," the alien said, its voice translated through the ship's computers. "You will speak only when asked questions." Ethan forced a smile. "High Commander, I am Captain Ethan Ward of Earth. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly relations between our peoples." Zextar's eyes narrowed. "We did not ask you to speak of peace, human. We called this meeting to evaluate your species." The alien turned to speak to someone off-screen, then faced Ethan again. "Our scans show your technology is primitive. You have barely mastered faster-than-light travel. You occupy only one star system with minor colonies in 2 others." "We are a young spacefaring civilization," Ethan admitted, "but we learn quickly and value peaceful cooperation with—" "Silence," Zextar interrupted. "The Viridian Empire has ruled hundreds of worlds across 3 star systems for 10,000 years. We do not cooperate. We command." The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Lieutenant Harris whispered, "Captain, I don't like this." Ethan ignored him, trying again. "Perhaps we can find common ground. Surely trade and cultural exchange would benefit both our—" "There is nothing you possess that we need," Zextar said coldly. "The High Council has reviewed the data from our scouts. Your species is aggressive, divided, and unpredictable. You are unworthy to share this galaxy with superior beings." Before Ethan could respond, the screen split to show 2 feeds. With horror, he recognized the human colony outposts on Proxima Centauri and Europa Prime. Without warning, beams of energy lanced down from orbit, turning buildings to ash in seconds. The screams of colonists cut through the bridge speakers before Lisa could mute them. "What are you doing?" Ethan shouted, his diplomatic facade crumbling as he watched thousands of humans die in real time. "Those were peaceful settlements." Zextar's face showed no emotion. "This is not a negotiation, Captain Ward. This is notification. The Viridian Empire has decided your species must be removed. You have been judged and found wanting." "This is an act of war," Ethan said, his voice shaking with rage. "Yes," Zextar agreed simply. "We expect your complete surrender within 1 Earth month. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your homeworld." The alien gave what might have been a smile. "Though your resistance might provide brief amusement for our warriors." The transmission cut off abruptly. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the blank screen. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris said quietly. "Your orders?" Ethan turned to face his crew, his face ashen but resolute. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to warn them." He looked back at the alien vessel through the viewports. The Viridians just made the biggest mistake in their 10,000-year history. They should have killed us all before declaring war. 6 months had passed since the Viridians declared war. 6 months of constant defeat for humanity. Earth's united military forces had fought bravely, but they were simply outmatched by the alien technology and tactics. In the underground war room beneath what remained of Washington, D.C., Admiral Lucia Rice stared at the holographic map showing Earth's remaining defenses. Red dots represented Viridian warships, surrounding Earth like hungry wolves. The blue dots of human ships were few and fading fast. Another colony lost in the Saturn sector, reported General Frank Miller, his face lined with exhaustion. That's the third this week. Admiral Rice nodded grimly. At 53, her black hair now streaked with gray, she had never expected to lead humanity's last stand. How many ships do we have left? 23 combat-ready vessels, answered Miller. Maybe 30 more that could fight if needed, but they're damaged. The room fell silent. When the war began, Earth had over 200 ships. We can't win this war with conventional tactics, Rice said finally. She pressed a button on the table, and the hologram changed to show a single ship design. That's why I've authorized Project Vengeance. The other military leaders leaned forward to study the sleek, unfamiliar vessel. What are we looking at, Admiral? Asked Air Force General Helen Brooks. Our last hope, Rice replied. A single ship with every experimental technology we've been developing. Stealth systems that can actually hide from Viridian sensors, weapons that might penetrate their shields, and the new phase shift drive. Phase shift is still theoretical, protested Miller. The test pilots experienced severe side effects. We don't have time for more tests, Rice snapped. The Viridians will break through our defenses within weeks. This is a suicide mission, deep into enemy territory, straight to their homeworld. The room erupted in arguments until Rice raised her hand for silence. I've already chosen the commander, she said. Jack Powell. Several officers muttered in surprise. Commander Powell. Miller shook his head. He's unstable after what happened to his family on Europa Prime. He's also the best tactical mind we have, Rice countered. And he has more combat experience against the Viridians than anyone alive. The door to the war room opened, and a man walked in. Commander Jack Powell was once a model officer, tall, clean-cut, with a commanding presence. Now his uniform hung loosely on his frame. His face was thin, with a ragged beard and eyes that had seen too much horror. You wanted to see me, Admiral? Powell asked, his voice rough from disuse. Commander Powell, Rice gestured to the hologram. This is the Vengeance. I want you to command her on a mission to the Viridian homeworld. Powell stared at the ship design, then back at Rice. The suicide mission. Most likely, she admitted. But if successful, it could change everything. What's the objective? Blow up their planet. There was no emotion in Powell's voice. We considered that, Rice said quietly. But we need something more than revenge. We need them to stop, to end this war. Your mission is to make them fear us enough to back down. Powell laughed bitterly. One ship against an empire. One ship with Earth's best crew and technology they've never seen, Rice corrected. You'll have freedom to engage however you see fit. The mission parameters are simple. Make them regret ever attacking humanity. Powell walked to the hologram and studied the ship. For the first time in months, something flickered in his dead eyes. When I was a boy, he said softly, my grandfather told me stories about a small country called Vietnam that once fought off a superpower, and about Greek warriors at Thermopylae who taught an empire to fear a small force. He looked up at Rice. When do we leave? The ship will be ready in 3 days, Rice replied. Your crew is being assembled now. Powell nodded once. I'll make them pay, not just for my family, for all of us. As he left the room, General Miller turned to Rice. You really think one ship can make a difference? No, Rice admitted, but I think Jack Powell might. The hangar bay where the Vengeance waited was massive, but the ship itself seemed to swallow all available space. Its dark hull absorbed the light, making it look like a hole cut into reality. Commander Jack Powell walked along its length, inspecting the vessel that would either save humanity or become his coffin. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" Powell turned to see a woman in an engineering uniform approaching. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her hands were stained with engine grease. "Lieutenant Olivia Martinez," she said, extending her hand. "Chief engineer for this mission." Powell shook her hand. "You designed the ship." "Parts of it," she admitted. "Mostly the experimental tech integration. The phase shift drive was my baby." "I've read the reports," Powell said. "Dangerous technology." Martinez shrugged. "War makes us take risks. The phase shift will let us jump short distances instantly, like teleporting. It gives us an edge the Viridians won't expect. If it doesn't kill us first," Powell replied. "There's that," Martinez agreed with a small smile. "But I'll be monitoring it personally. I won't let it fail." They walked together toward a conference room where the rest of the crew waited. Powell paused at the doorway, studying the people who would follow him on this impossible mission. "Your crew, Commander," said Admiral Reyes, who stood at the head of the table. "The best Earth has left." Powell nodded and took his seat. Reyes introduced each person around the table. "Lieutenant Olivia Martinez, Chief Engineer. She knows this ship better than anyone alive." Martinez nodded, taking her seat. "Communications Officer Sam Kelly. Speaks 12 Earth languages and has spent the last 6 months studying Viridian communications." A young man with bright eyes and nervous energy nodded. "I can understand about 40% of their language now, sir. Enough to intercept basic commands." Weapons Specialist Daniel Wright, a muscular man with cold eyes and a scar across his cheek, nodded once. "Former Special Forces. I've killed 17 Viridians in ground combat. Looking forward to increasing that number." Navigation Officer Kate Winters, a tall woman with short blonde hair, smiled slightly. "I've been studying Viridian flight patterns. They're predictable once you understand their basics mathematics." And finally, Medical Officer Alan Peterson, an older man with gray at his temples, looked up from a tablet. "I've performed autopsies on Viridian bodies. I know their weaknesses better than anyone." Powell looked around the table. "This is it. 6 people. The ship is designed to run with minimal crew," Reyes explained. "Fewer lives at risk, and the stealth systems work better with fewer heat signatures." Powell leaned forward. "Here's our situation. We have 1 ship against an empire. Our mission is to reach the Viridian homeworld and make them regret starting this war." "How exactly do we do that?" asked Winters. "That's what we need to figure out," Powell replied. "I've studied every encounter with the Viridians. They're arrogant. They believe they're invincible. We need to shatter that belief." "They're not wrong about being powerful," Wright said grimly. "Their weapons cut through our best shields like paper." "But they have weaknesses," Peterson added. "Their ships rely on a central control system. Damage that, and the whole ship struggles. And they've never seen phase shift technology," Martinez pointed out. "We'll be unpredictable." "Unpredictable is good," Powell agreed. "But we need more. Kelly, what have you learned about their culture?" Kelly straightened. "They worship strength. They despise weakness. And they fear shame more than death." Powell nodded slowly. "Then that's our target. Not just their ships or weapons. We need to shame them. Humiliate them. Make them look weak." "A psychological attack," Wright said, understanding dawning on his face. "Exactly." Powell stood up. "We leave tomorrow at 600. We'll use a series of jumps to avoid detection. Once in Viridian space, we become hunters." As the others left to prepare, Admiral Reyes stayed behind with Powell. "You have that look," she said quietly. "What look?" "Like you found something to live for again." Powell's face hardened. "Not to live for. To die for." Reyes shook her head. "That's not what Earth needs, Jack. We need you to win, not just make a grand last stand." Powell looked toward the window where the vengeance waited. "First, we make them bleed. Then we'll see about winning. The Vengeance slipped through space like a ghost. Its dark hull absorbed nearby starlight, making it nearly invisible against the black void. On the bridge, Commander Powell sat in the captain's chair, eyes fixed on the main view screen showing 3 Viridian patrol ships in the distance. "They don't see us," Navigation Officer Kate Winters said with a hint of pride. "Stealth systems working perfectly." Powell nodded. The Vengeance had been in Viridian space for 2 weeks. They had passed through 4 heavily guarded sectors without detection. Now they were approaching their first target, a Viridian communications relay station. "Status report," Powell ordered. "Engines running at 60%. Martinez reported from her engineering station. Any higher risks detection. Phase shift drive is charged but not active. Weapons hot and ready," Wright added. His fingers moved across his console like a pianist's. "Target locked. All Viridian communications monitored," Kelly said. "They're sending routine status updates. No alarms." Powell took a deep breath. "Remember the plan. Hit fast, disappear faster. We want them confused and scared." He pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All hands, prepare for combat maneuvers." He turned to Martinez. "Activate phase shift for 5 seconds. Put us behind the station." "Phase shift activating," Martinez replied. Her face tensed with concentration as she manipulated the controls. 3, 2, 1. The bridge lights flickered. A strange sensation passed through everyone, like their bodies were stretching and compressing at the same time. Several crew members gasped in pain. Then, instantly, the view on the screen changed. The Vengeance now floated directly behind the massive Viridian relay station. "Phase shift complete," Martinez announced, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Drive cooling down. We can't jump again for 15 minutes. "We won't need to," Powell said. "Right. Target their power core and communication arrays. Fire when ready." Wright smiled coldly. Firing main cannons. Beams of concentrated energy erupted from the Vengeance, slicing through the station's outer defenses and striking critical systems. Secondary explosions bloomed across the structure. "Direct hits," Wright reported. "Their shields are down." "Kelly, broadcast on all Viridian frequencies," Powell ordered. Kelly nodded and opened a channel. "Ready, sir." Powell leaned forward. "This is Commander Jack Powell of Earth Vessel Vengeance. Your empire started this war. We're going to end it. This is just the beginning." "Message sent," Kelly confirmed. "They're scrambling response ships." "Martinez, are we ready to jump?" Powell asked. She shook her head. "Phase shift needs 10 more minutes to cool down. We have to do this the old way." "Evasive maneuvers, Winters. Maximum speed." Powell ordered. "Right, target the patrol ships if they get close." The Vengeance surged forward just as the Viridian patrol ships changed course to intercept. The human vessel was smaller and more agile, dancing between enemy weapon fire. "They're closing in," Winters warned. 3 minutes until they're in weapons range." Powell gripped his chair as the ship shuddered. "Martinez, we need that phase shift." "I'm trying," she replied, fingers flying across her console. "If we jump too soon, we could tear the ship apart." Wright fired a warning shot that passed close to the Lid Viridian ship. That might slow them down. Instead, the Viridian ships accelerated. "They're hailing us," Kelly reported with surprise. "On screen," Powell ordered. The face of a Viridian commander appeared, its skin patterns pulsing with what looked like anger. "Human vessel, you attack an Imperial relay station. This is an act of war." Powell actually laughed. "Your empire already declared war on us. Or did you forget the colonies you destroyed?" The Viridian's eyes narrowed. "You cannot escape. Surrender now." "Phase shift ready in 30 seconds, Martinez called out. Powell smiled at the Viridian. "We don't plan to escape. We plan to hunt you. All of you. One by one." "Weapons in range," Wright reported. "Phase shift ready," Martinez shouted. Jump, Powell ordered as the first Viridian shots hit their shields. The strange stretching sensation returned, and suddenly the vengeance was 2 light minutes away, safely hidden in the shadow of a small moon. Damage report, Powell asked. Minor shield damage, Martins replied. But everyone needs to report to medical. Phase shift side effects are getting worse. Powell nodded, feeling the blood dripping from his nose. Next target in 8 hours. For now, rest and repairs. As the crew dispersed, Powell stayed on the bridge, staring at the stars. The hunt had begun. The Vengeance drifted silently among the asteroids. Outside, chunks of space rock provided perfect cover. Inside, the crew worked frantically to repair damage from their most recent battle. 3 weeks had passed since their first attack, and they had struck 5 more Viridian targets. Each time, they left destruction and confusion in their wake. In the medical bay, Dr. Peterson examined Commander Powell, who lay on a bed with sensors attached to his temples. The phase shift is affecting everyone, Peterson said, studying the readings with concern. But you're showing the worst symptoms. Powell sat up, ignoring the dizziness. I'll manage. How's the rest of the crew? Martinez has migraines. Kelly is experiencing time perception issues. Wright and Winters have nosebleeds after each jump. Peterson shook his head. We can't keep using the phase shift at this rate. We do what we must, Powell said, standing up. Any progress on understanding why it affects us this way? I have a theory, Peterson replied. The phase shift moves us through dimensions our bodies aren't designed to experience. It's like forcing a 3-dimensional object through a 2-dimensional space. Powell nodded, then winced at the pain it caused. Find a way to reduce the effects. We need that technology. As he left medical, Powell's communicator beeped. Commander, you need to get to communications immediately. Kelly's voice sounded urgent. When Powell arrived at the communications room, Kelly was hunched over his console, listening intently to something through headphones. What is it? Powell asked. Kelly looked up, his eyes wide. I've been monitoring Viridian communications from a nearby command ship. I just intercepted something important. He removed his headphones and played the recording through the room speakers. The translated voice of a Viridian officer filled the room. High Command confirms the human ship continues to evade capture. The architects are displeased. They demand immediate results. Powell frowned. Architects? Who are they talking about? I don't know, Kelly admitted. But there's more. He played another recording. Prepare the command center for Architect Zinvex's arrival. Full subjugation protocols must be followed. Any failure will result in collective punishment. Powell leaned closer. The Viridians have masters. Play everything you've intercepted about these architects. For the next hour, Powell and Kelly listened to fragments of communications. Slowly, a picture emerged. They're not an empire, Powell said finally, pacing the small room. The Viridians are servants to these architects. Not just servants, Kelly added. More like slaves. Listen to how they speak about them. With fear. Powell pressed the ship's intercom. Senior crew to the briefing room. Immediately. Minutes later, all 5 senior officers gathered around the table as Kelly played the recordings. What do we know about these architects? Martins asked when the recordings finished. Very little, Kelly replied. But from what I can piece together, they're an ancient species. They control the Viridians using some kind of technology that affects their minds. That would explain their fanatical behavior, Dr. Peterson noted. If they're being controlled, they might not even have a choice about this war. Wright scoffed. Does it matter? They still destroyed our colonies. They're still trying to wipe us out. It matters, Powell said quietly. Because it changes our mission. He walked to the view screen and pulled up a star chart. We've been attacking random targets, trying to scare the Viridians. But if they're just puppets, we need to target the puppet masters. The architects, Winters said, understanding. Powell nodded. Kelly, can you determine where these architects are based? Kelly thought for a moment. The communication suggests there's a central control facility on the Viridian homeworld. It's heavily guarded, of course. Of course, Powell agreed with a grim smile. Martinez, what would happen if we used your phase shift technology to bypass those guards and reach this control facility? Martinez's eyes widened. Theoretically, we could jump right inside their defenses. But the phase shift was designed for ship travel in space, not precision jumps to planetary surfaces. Could you modify it? She hesitated. Maybe, but the side effects would be worse. Much worse. Powell looked around at his crew. We came on a suicide mission. Nothing's changed except our target. He pointed to the location of the Viridian homeworld on the star chart. We're going there, and we're going to free the Viridians from their masters. Free them? Wright asked incredulously. They killed millions of our people, and we'll make the ones responsible pay, Powell promised. But now we know who's really responsible. A blast rocked the Vengeance, sending everyone on the bridge lurching forward. Commander Powell gripped his chair as the ship's emergency lights flickered on. Direct hit to the port engine. Martine is called out from her station. Shields down to 30%. Return fire, Powell ordered. Wright targeted the nearest Viridian cruiser and fired. The energy beams struck the enemy ship, but its shields held. We're surrounded, Winters reported, her voice tight with tension. 5 ships closing in. We can't outrun them with the damaged engine. Powell's mind raced. They were still 3 days from the Viridian homeworld, 3 days away from completing their mission. Martinez, status on phase shift. Operational, but with the damaged engine. I can't guarantee where we'll end up, she replied. It's our only option, Powell decided. Jump us out of here. Martinez activated the phase shift drive. The familiar stretching sensation washed over the crew, more painful than ever. Powell felt like his skull might crack open. When the sensation passed, the view screen showed they were drifting near a small rocky moon. Where are we? Powell asked, wiping blood from his ears. Winters checked her instruments. System key DX219. It's occupied. Viridians? No, she replied, surprised. The readings show a different species, and there's a settlement on that moon. Powell considered their options. The Vengeance was badly damaged. They needed repairs before they could continue to the Viridian homeworld. Take us in, he ordered. Approach with caution. As they entered orbit around the moon, they saw a sprawling settlement built into the rocky surface. Small ships moved around it, none appearing military in nature. They're hailing us, Kelly announced. On screen, Powell said. The view screen showed a being with gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. It spoke in a language none of them recognized. Kelly, can you translate? Powell asked. Kelly worked quickly at his console. Partial translation. Unknown vessel. Identify. Or we will. Defensive measures. Open a channel, Powell instructed. Tell them we mean no harm. We're damaged and need repairs. Kelly transmitted the message. After a tense minute, the being responded. They're asking if we're Viridian, Kelly translated. They seem afraid. Tell them we're human. We're fighting against the Viridians. When Kelly relayed this message, the alien's 4 eyes widened. It spoke rapidly. They're inviting us to land, Kelly said with surprise. They say any enemy of the Viridians is welcome. Powell exchanged looks with his officers. Could be a trap. Or potential allies, Martins pointed out. We need those repairs. Powell made his decision. Tell them we accept. Winters, take us in. The Vengeance landed in a large cave that served as a hangar. Powell led a small team including Wright and Martinez to meet their hosts. They were greeted by a group of the 4-eyed beings. One stepped forward, wearing elaborate markings on its gray skin. Kelly's translator worked to convert its speech. I am Voxtel, leader of the Kelteri, the alien said. You truly fight the Viridians. We do, Powell confirmed. They attacked our world without provocation. Voxtel made a gesture that might have been a nod. The same happened to us, generations ago. The Viridians destroy our homeworld. We survivors hide here, fighting when we can. We've discovered something about the Viridians, Powell said carefully. They serve masters called the Architects. At the mention of Architects, the Kelteri reacted with visible fear. Voxtel's voice lowered. You know of the mind controllers. Few outsiders learn this truth. We intercepted communications, Powell explained. We believe if we can destroy the control facility on the Viridian homeworld, we might free them from Architect control. Voxtel studied Powell for a long moment. Many have tried to fight the Architects. None have succeeded. We have technology they haven't seen before, Martinez added. But our ship is damaged. We will help repair your vessel, Voxtel decided. And more. We have fought the Viridians for centuries. We know their defenses, their patterns. Powell felt hope for the first time in months. We came seeking repairs. It seems we found allies. More than allies, Voxtel said. You bring hope. If these Architects can be defeated. The alien looked at its people, then back to Powell. We will join your fight. As the Kelteri led them deeper into their settlement, Powell whispered to Martinez, one ship became two. Maybe that's enough to change everything. The combined fleet of the Vengeance and 7 Kelteri ships approached the Viridian homeworld. From orbit, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans, green landmasses, and white clouds. It was hard to believe this beautiful world was the center of an empire that had caused so much suffering. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Commander Powell studied the tactical display. The planet was surrounded by defense platforms and patrol ships. Everyone knows the plan, Powell said to his crew and the Kelteri captains watching on the view screen. The Kelteri ships will attack the southern defense grid as a diversion. While their forces are distracted, the Vengeance will use phase shift to bypass their defenses and land near the central control facility. Voxtel, the Kelteri leader, nodded. My people are ready to fight and die if necessary. The Architects have tormented our galaxy for too long. No one dies today if we can help it, Powell said firmly. Once we destroy the control center, the Viridians should be freed from Architect influence. When that happens, we want allies, not more enemies. The Kelteri ships moved into position while the Vengeance powered up its phase shift drive. Martinez had modified it for a precise planetary jump, but the risks were enormous. Phase shift at maximum charge, Martinez reported. Her face was pale, and her hands trembled slightly. The modifications had pushed the dangerous technology to its limits. Everyone ready for ground assault? Powell asked, looking at Wright and the small team of volunteers. Wright checked his weapon. Ready, sir. Powell turned to Dr. Peterson. You have the disruption device. Peterson patted a metal case secured to his belt. Based on the Kelteri data, this should overload the Architect control system. But I need to get within 50 meters of the central node. That's my job, Wright said with a grim smile. Kelly's voice cut through the tension. Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Viridian High Command. On screen, Powell ordered. The face that appeared wasn't Viridian. It was pale, almost translucent, with large black eyes that seemed to absorb light. Its head was elongated, with no visible hair or ears. An Architect, Voxtel whispered, fear evident in his voice. Human vessel, the Architect said, its voice unnaturally smooth and calm. I am Zinvex, First Overseer. Your presence is known to us. Your plans are known to us. You will not succeed. Powell kept his face neutral. We're just passing through. No plans here. The Architect's expression didn't change. Deception is pointless. We have observed your species. You are chaotic, unpredictable. A disruption to the order we maintain. The order where you enslave entire species. Powell challenged. We provide purpose, direction. Without us, lesser species destroy themselves with their freedom. The Architect leaned closer to the screen. Surrender now, and your death will be painless. Powell smiled. Here's our answer. Kelly, cut transmission. The screen went dark. They know we're here, Winters said nervously. Good, Powell replied. Knowing and stopping are different things. Signal the Kelteri. Begin the attack. The Kelteri ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Viridian defense platforms turned to engage them, just as planned. Phase shift ready, Martins announced. Take us in, Powell ordered. The familiar stretching sensation washed over them, worse than ever before. Powell felt like his body was being torn apart and reassembled incorrectly. Blood poured from his nose and ears. When reality stabilized, the Vengeance had landed in a wooded area just 2 kilometers from the control facility. Through the trees, they could see a massive structure of black metal and pulsing blue energy fields. Ground team, move out, Powell ordered, wiping blood from his face. Martinez, keep the ship ready for emergency extraction. Powell led Wright, Peterson, and 3 volunteers out of the ship. In the distance, they could see Viridian guards patrolling the perimeter of the facility. This is it, Powell said, checking his weapon. We get in, plant the disruptor, and get out. The future of Earth depends on what happens in the next hour. As they moved through the trees toward the facility, Powell felt a strange calmness. One way or another, the war would end today. Alarms blared throughout the Architect control facility as Powell and his team fought their way through corridors filled with Viridian guards. Wright moved with deadly precision, his weapon taking down enemies before they could react. This way, Peterson called, consulting a small device that displayed the facility layout provided by Kelteri intelligence. The central chamber should be through these doors. Powell's communicator crackled. Commander, this is Martinez. The Kelteri are taking heavy losses in orbit. Their diversion won't last much longer. Understood, Powell replied. We're almost at the target. Wright placed explosive charges on the massive doors leading to the central chamber. The team took cover as the explosion ripped the doors apart. They rushed inside to find a vast circular room. In the center stood a pillar of pulsing blue energy that reached from floor to ceiling. Around it, 5 architects worked at control stations. Unlike the Viridians, they moved with calm precision even as the intruders burst in. Stop them, ordered one architect, its voice eerily calm. More Viridian guards rushed forward. Wright and the team engaged them while Powell and Peterson fought their way toward the central pillar. That's it, Peterson shouted over the noise of battle. The control node. I need to get the disruptor device close to it. A beam of energy struck Peterson in the shoulder, spinning him around. The metal case containing the disruptor flew from his hands, sliding across the floor. Powell dove for it as an architect glided toward him with unnatural speed. Wright saw Powell's danger and shifted his fire, hitting the architect directly. The beam barely slowed, the energy weapons seeming to cause minimal damage. Powell grabbed the case and rolled to his feet, finding himself face to face with another architect. This one was taller than the others, with intricate patterns etched into its pale skin. Human, it said, and Powell recognized the voice of Zinvex from the earlier transmission. You cannot comprehend what you are interfering with. We have guided species for 50,000 years. Without us, chaos will reign. We prefer our chaos to your control, Powell replied, clutching the disruptor case. Zinvex's black eyes showed no emotion. Your species is particularly resistant to our influence. Perhaps this is why you fight so hard for freedom you don't understand how to use. In a lightning-fast movement, the architect struck Powell, sending him crashing into a control panel. Pain exploded across his ribs. Wright saw Powell fall and charged toward Zinvex, firing continuously. The architect turned, making the simple gesture with one long-fingered hand. Wright froze in place, his body suddenly rigid. Primitive minds are easily controlled directly, Zinvex explained, turning back to Powell. The Viridians required our technology for mass control, but individuals can be managed with minimal effort. Powell struggled to his feet, blood dripping from a cut above his eye. The disruptor case was still in his hands. He was only 20 meters from the energy pillar. "You came seeking revenge," Zinvex said, moving closer. "Yet you cannot even comprehend what you face." "I understand enough," Powell replied. "You enslave worlds. You turn the Viridians into your puppets. You ordered the attack on Earth. All for order, for progress." Powell laughed bitterly. "That's where you're wrong. Humanity doesn't progress under control. We advance through freedom, through choice, even through our chaos." In one swift motion, Powell opened the case and activated the disruptor. He hurled it toward the energy pillar with all his remaining strength. Zinvex moved to intercept it, but a shot from one of Powell's team struck the architect, causing it to stumble just enough. The disruptor hit the energy pillar and attached itself. Blue lightning crackled across its surface. "What have you done?" Zinvex demanded, actual emotion, fear, showing in its voice for the first time. "Freed them," Powell said simply. The energy pillar pulsed erratically, then exploded in a blinding flash of light. The wave of energy knocked everyone to the floor. When Powell regained consciousness moments later, he saw the Viridian guards looking around in confusion. They lowered their weapons, staring at the architects with dawning horror and rage as memories of their enslavement returned. Zinvex stood amid the chaos, watching as its perfect order collapsed. "You have no idea what you've unleashed," it said quietly. Powell rose to his feet, facing the architect. "That's humanity for you. Unpredictable, chaotic, and free. Now, about that piece we mentioned."